My name is Sandy Larson. I work at the Office of Alumni Relations. I serve as the Assistant Director of Events. I've been here for about 25 years in this role or in this office, and have loved all of my time at the university. So this program started, this is the 32nd edition. This program started back when the world shut down in 2020, and we continued doing it in light of everything getting back together in person. We had such success with it that we continue to do it even past the pandemic. We've had some great guests over the years, and so it was just a nice treat to be able to talk to people across the world. People could join in from wherever they were. So if they couldn't join us geographically, they can always join us a few times a year virtually for this Cup of Joe. It is my honor to introduce my friend and the University of Idaho Alumni Association Board of Directors, past president as of about 2 days ago, Travis Jones. Travis holds 2 degrees from the University of Idaho, one in 1999 and 2002 in agriculture business and agricultural economics, respectively. Though Travis has been on our board of directors a few years, he has also been involved in some capacity since he graduated. He's helped build our Graduates of the Last Decade program that's still going strong here in Boise, and we're looking to expand that. He's continued to volunteer when he moved away from the Treasure Valley and has continued since he's moved back. We thank you for your service on the board and look forward to continuing to work with you in the future, whatever capacity that may be. Ladies and gentlemen, Travis Jones.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here tonight. I guess it's this afternoon, tonight, wherever you may be across the world, because we know this is a worldwide event. And, lots of Cup of Joes, I think, have included people from far and wide. Sandy, you can attest to that, depending on who we've had. And, if you've ever tuned into one of these Cup of Joes events in the past, you've seen, CEOs, lawyers, engineers, probably doctors, and many other prominent members of our Vandal community, but you rarely get to hear from an undergraduate, someone who's in the fray, in the middle of their time at U of I, or towards the end in this case. And so it's a pleasure and a unique pleasure to have ASUI President Tanner McClain on the call with us today on our virtual Cup of Joe. So first, I want to thank you for your service, Tanner. We'll get into that later, but you've led and been instrumental in many, many incredible accomplishments during your relatively short time at the U of I. And you've certainly, got to lead during some of the most challenging times in our university's 135-year history. And for all you have done, and speaking on behalf of our 115,000 alumni, we want to express our gratefulness and thanks to you for these past several years, not only through the tragedy that we know of from 2 years ago, but for all the success that we as Vandal alums get to enjoy as we return or engage with the University of Idaho in our own ways. A lot of what's taking place and the good things happening are due to you and the other ASUI senators and other student leaders on campus. So from me to you, thank you. All right, so now you have to indulge me for a minute or two as I give you a little brief sketch of tonight's Cup of Joe guest, Tanner McClain.
Some of you know, Travis. Thanks for that introduction. Also want to point out I got my Cup of Joe right here on Cup of Joe. So thanks for inviting me and happy to get started.
You got to wait till I introduce you.
Oh, my apologies. I'm
There's
so
more
eager
to
get
talk
started,
about,
Travis.
But I'm very happy that you're ready to go. You've got your voice all warmed up. So you got to indulge me. You do too, Tanner. For a minute or two, I want to give everyone a brief sketch of our guest tonight. So Tanner is from Middleton, Idaho, which was a relatively small town about 10 or 15 years ago, but now is not so much. And today in 2024, he's a senior at the University of Idaho. He's majoring in a field that I hold dear because it's my career, political science. And he also has in philosophy as well, and also has a minor in English he's working on. And by best accounts, he's going to graduate in just a couple weeks. So those that already know this, but he served 2 terms as president of the ASUI, which is another rare feat in the history of ASUI presidents. And he's also a member of the Beta Theta Pi fraternity, which, if you aren't aware of it, as far as I remember, Tanner, it's the oldest fraternity on U of I's campus. And he's been involved with several other groups, including student senate and leadership roles within his fraternity during his time on campus. And in high school, he brought the Young Americans for Freedom Club to Middleton High and then served as its president. So his interest in leadership and in holding office goes back a few years before he even enrolled at the university. So that's the brief sketch. And if I messed up any of those details, Tanner, I apologize, but there won't be any opportunity for you to correct those for the record. Ha 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 ha. Kidding. So now for the moment we've all been waiting for, it's time to pummel President McClain with a series of enlightening questions. You may laugh, you may cry, but one thing's for certain, you'll get to know and appreciate the one and only ASUI President Tanner McClain. So now, Tanner, we're ready to roll with questions. Do you have any opening statement before I start pummeling you, as I said earlier?
Opening statement, all I have to say is thanks for inviting me on the show. And I want to thank, the alumni and the Alumni Association. I know I met with you and the others this past Saturday, but you guys have been very supportive of our students these last 2 years. And so I just want to give my show of appreciation there, as well as in 2 weeks, knock on wood, hopefully I'll be joining you guys in the alumni world, being an alumni myself. So other than that, I'm ready to get started.
All right. So we're going to start from ground zero here. So tell us a little bit about you. As we mentioned, you grew up in Middleton. Why did you choose the U of I, and why did you choose the majors and the minors that you have chosen?
Yeah, so grew up in Middleton, Idaho, but a little quick backstory before that as well. I was born in Kansas and moved to Idaho when I was 11 or 12 years old. But I have lots of family in Idaho. And so my first week in Idaho, so neither my parents went to the University of Idaho, but my grandpa and grandma both went to U of I. And the first week in Boise, he brought me and my sister to the Vandal store. So I remember, being a young kid from Kansas, I was kind of like, oh, I don't really, know what U of I is all about or anything. But of course, over time, my grandpa, he really got me, acquainted with the University of Idaho. And even something just kind of special I wanted to show today was something he gave me when I went to the U of I. It's an old, I think, original edition of Beacon for Mountain and Plain. And it's something that he gave his dad, so my great grandpa, back in 1967. So I just brought that along because I wanted to show it today for a little bit of backstory on some of the past of my family and then being Vandals as well. And so why I chose University of Idaho, well, my sister, who's a few years older than me, was around the time when I was in high school. She was in her sophomore, junior year at the U of I, and I remember coming up to visit. I remember in particular homecoming. There's one memory that really always stuck out to me when I was in high school, and that was homecoming. That was Serpentine, the bonfire, and all the other just craziness and community that you see during that weekend. And that was one of those moments that always stuck with me, and what made me excited to become a Vandal and choose to go to the University of Idaho. And my majors on that note as well. So in high school, my senior year of high school, I did a capstone class where I do a job shadow, and I decided to shadow an attorney who was a family attorney. But following him around, I automatically knew after that that's what I wanted to do. And so, in that path to law school, I chose political science, as it relates to, policy and legislation that impacts the law. On the political policy side, I've been able to take a lot of classes revolving around civil liberties, constitutional law, philosophy. Philosophy was a choice I made my sophomore year. That's because I just doing some research, found that philosophy was the most helpful major in terms of the LSAT and being successful in the law school, as it helps with logic and critical thinking, analyzing, reading comprehension and the rest. And then English, I chose because I had a buddy actually who was in some English classes, and he also was interested in going to law school. But he told me there was a professor I would really like in particular named Tom Drake, and so I decided to take one of his classes. And his lectures are absolutely amazing and entertaining. So I decided to just kind of have the minor for fun, and as well as to learn from literature and to improve my reading and writing skills as well.
That's excellent. So I think what I heard you say is your sister was already at U of I. Is that correct? When you were?
Yeah, she would have been so she was a senior at the University of Idaho when I was a freshman, my first year. So gosh, so I think she was there for a couple of years when I was in high school. I got a chance to come up and visit.
Well, that just shows me you're even more that you're a gentleman and a scholar, because my sister was also at U of I, older than me, and I almost didn't go to U of I because she was there. But hey, we get along now. It's all good. So anyway, good to know that you guys got along just right. Okay, back on track here. Question 2. Looking back, what motivated you to run for the position of ASUI president? I mean, who got you into that? How did you find out about ASUI? Fraternity or friends or whatever. Give a little background about that and how that all came to be.
Yeah. So quick background on how I got involved in ASUI in the first place, in the ASUI Senate. Joe Garrett, he was my Greek big in Beta Theta Pi, and automatically, like the first week of school, I'm hanging out with him. I got really close with him. He's a really good friend of mine, and he told me, like, I think you should really run for ASUI Senate. I think you would enjoy it. I think you would take away a lot from it. And at the time, I was kind of like, no, like, because I didn't want to really put myself out there like that in a campaign, because campaigning is kind of a weird thing you got to do, and I wasn't so sure about it at the time. But he kept talking to me about it, and he eventually convinced me to run for the Senate. And once then, I got really passionate about it right off the bat, particularly in the second half of my term. I just grew more and more passionate, but deciding to run for president was a whole nother endeavor in itself. As you know, Travis, being you were in ASUI back in the day, right?
Well, I did all the fraternity leadership, and no, I was not, is the short answer.
Oh,
all my extra time was fraternity leadership positions.
Yeah. And I decided to run for ASUI president, though. It really goes back to community, and that's something you'll hear me talk about a lot more today in the interview, is community. It really has been everything to me here at the University of Idaho. In particular, the one aspect I ran for president. So my first 2 years at the university was during COVID and the pandemic, and because of COVID, there wasn't opportunity for as much social gatherings on campus. With face masks and the COVID protocols, we didn't have those opportunities. My first week at the University of Idaho, I actually tested positive for COVID-19, and I was in the COVID dorms, and that was kind of a lonely week, if I'm being honest. I was kind of afraid. I could hear people outside my outside of Target Hall walking around that first week of school, and I felt like I was missing out a lot. And so coming out of that experience, I didn't want any other student at the University of Idaho to also have the experience of being alone and not having their home or their community here. And so what I wanted to do as president, and what I ran on, one of my central points was Vandal Pride. This was back when me and Madison Fitzgerald, when we came together, we sat down, we wanted to know why we wanted to run and everything. It was all focused around Vandal Pride and increasing that lively atmosphere on campus. Because of the pandemic, campus wasn't as lively as we thought it should have. But fortunately, in the year that we did campaign around for president, that's when the second cycle of COVID began to die down, and we campaigned on really those liveliness on campus and those supporting campus events and creating new campus events, which I'm looking forward to talk about here later on. But that's the ultimate reason why.
So you're obviously one of those rare unicorns that's been president for 2 terms. So why did you run for the second one? Was it just to continue your good work? Is it to see things through? What was your thought process there?
It's the people.
Yeah,
it was all about the people for me. Becoming I loved the people when I was on the Senate, of course, and everything else. But when I became ASUI president, the ASUI organization itself became my family, in a lot of ways. It became my, and I wanted to continue that, and I wanted to continue that leadership onto the next year. And so for me, it really came down to the people. And, one thing about ASUI I think that's really so great is, I have my friends in Beta Theta Pi, of course, my brothers in Beta Theta Pi, but being able to expand outside of that circle, ASUI has been giving me that opportunity. Now I have, really great friends who, international students. I have great friends in the residence halls, and student athletes elsewhere on campus. And so for me, running for that second term, it really came down to the people that was surrounding me in ASUI and wanting to continue that into the next year and continue those initiatives that we had started in my first year as president.
So when I want to hear a little bit about the campaign itself, campaigning. I mean, it's obviously, we're coming up in Idaho on, this is an election year, and I don't want to pretend that what's happening in Idaho or in the US is the same as a college, but at the same time, given that I'm involved in that kind of work, and May 21st is the primary. So if you are in Idaho, please vote May 21st for Idaho's primary. But what's it like to campaign as for student body, for an office of student body, for student president, Senate? I mean, your first time out of the blocks, like, what did you do? Did you, what was the most interesting, some of the most interesting interactions you had or issues you heard about from students?
It's a really unique experience running for, student body president on a campus at a university. It's everything is much large. It's very large, but at the same time, it's very condensed. It's very tight knit with like the students you're interacting with, of course. And so the first campaign was definitely a lot more intense and a lot more going on. Last year, I ran unopposed. I still went out there. I still went and spoke to living groups. I still, had a social media and me and Peyton Lawfer, we still got out there and whatnot. But the first campaign was a lot more intense because I was running against an opponent, Katie Hettinga and Olivia Nemi. First off, I do want to say I have nothing but respect for Katie Hettinga and Olivia Nemi. Katie Hettinga, she's one of the hardest workers, smart people I've ever known. Olivia Nemi, she later on became the chief of staff for ASUI. And honestly, I had a lot of moments where, she helped support me, honestly, in so many different ways where I don't think I would have still been here in a second term if it wasn't for her. But aside from all that, campaigning. So one thing me and Madison did a really good job about was being on the ground. And that's one thing about student elections, university elections, you got to be on the ground talking to students as much as possible. We went and spoke to every single Greek house at the university, get in front of everyone and give our platform points and what we were going to accomplish if elected. I had several people on my campaign team in the residence halls where I would go into the eatery every week and hand out flyers, talk to students having lunch. We also had a couple of events. We had like an Easter egg hunt kind of event where we put like Easter eggs around campus and also I do want to give another big shout out to Jaden Marie, who did a fantastic job and running the social media on the campaign. I don't have any social media suave or intellects or anything, and she did a fantastic job in accomplishing that. And also I want to give a big shout out to both my vice presidents, Madison Fitzgerald and Peyton Lawfer. Both of them did a great job in helping support. But the one thing about going back to like the campaign itself and the experience, and this is something I go back to. It's the people, and the people that I brought onto my campaign team is how I got elected. The people I was surrounding myself with. I tried to be purposeful and bringing on people from all walks of life on campus. And but it is kind of strange though, because there was times where I would sit there and I think like, these people are like this isn't like, I'm not paying them anything. They're not really getting anything from it. I'm like, why are they doing this? Like, so it's kind of a strange kind of experience to have, but I encourage, any students who are listening to this, to run for the ASUI Senate. It's not as intense as president, but it's still just a great experience. And you get a lot more confident from it, because to put yourself out there, win or lose, that's an experience and you'll grow from it for the better.
Thank you. That's good insights there. So, in all these years that you've been working, in student government, I mean, share some of what you believe your key accomplishments, initiatives, projects that you've undertaken during those 2 terms that you want to highlight.
Yeah, so the first one I'll highlight, this is the one that It was really kind of easy to accomplish, but this is the one I probably have the most amount of just students come up to me and say thank you for, whether I'm at the corner club or wherever else on campus. This one I've had a lot of students come up and thank me for this, but even though it was pretty easy, and I do want to attribute this to Madison Fitzgerald as well. We both worked on this together, and I think she might have had actually the original idea for it, but it was the Vandal lift. And so before us, there was no Lyft or Uber or anything else at the University of Idaho or in the Moscow community. But we went out, we talked with representatives from Lyft and representatives from the Parking and Transportation Services here on campus. And now all students each month get $30 of free Lyft credits. So as a student, if I log in with my student email, I'm able to, there's certain hours, I believe, and I have to go back and look at that. But I know plenty of students who use it at night or during the day to get where they need to be, and you're able to just log in, get that free ride, and it gets reset every month. A couple other, my next really big one on the representation side of things, and what I ran on to is student services, Vandal Pride, and representation. I think that Vandal Lift kind of serves into the student services, but one thing speaking to representation is the Legislative Ambassador Program. And so this is something that existed prior to COVID, but with COVID, of course, this program kind of died out and didn't exist in my time at ASUI or coming to the university. And so the ASUI Legislative Ambassador Program used to be something that ASUI did each year, where we would take students down to the state capitol to advocate for certain policies. And so my first year as president, we brought this program back in full force. We brought 20 to 25 students down to the state capitol. This past year, we brought 35 students down to the state capitol. And during this first year, part of the Legislative Ambassador Program, we had students meet personally with their legislators. So we had a lot of Idaho students who would help them with getting their phone call of their representatives and some talk and some basic talking points to get on the phone with their representative and set up a meeting and talk to them about a policy. We also hosted a breakfast in the Capitol Rotunda and invited all state legislators and state officials. That year we had Governor Little attend and others. And we also had a meeting with Governor Little as well as a Q&A. And it was a huge success. It was a really great way to represent the student body. And the main policy focus of that year was the Idaho Launch Scholarship. And so the Idaho Launch Scholarship, which got funded this year, and you'll see a lot of students be able to use this to go on to secondary education in the state of Idaho. And so, this is something that I was really proud of, and something that I also, speaking of the Idaho Launch Scholarship, something I worked on with the Associated Students at Boise State University as well, and on kind of advocating for this scholarship, which we saw pass the state legislature that year. And then going on to well, I'll do my baby last. I'll do the next one. Kind of one thing I'm leaving that is really, I think, going to be important to stay here at the university in the coming years. But I'm adding an additional, I recommended an additional process in the student fee committee. Student fee committee is something ASUI does each year. I think it's one of the most important things of work we do. But I'm adding a self-review additional process to this, so students can see what student fees are being used for, how they're being utilized. And so it's going to increase transparency and accountability of our student funds. All right, I'll do the last one I'll talk about. I know we got to.
There's one I'm going to bring up if you don't. So let's see if you bring this one up.
Okay. So this one is, it's my baby, as everyone at ASUI knows. It's the ASUI Winter Social. I don't know if that's the one you were going to bring up or not.
Nope.
Okay.
But let's go forward with this one.
Yeah. So and we just made this, working with SARB, and we made this a new Vandal tradition, official on the list. And it's something I started my first term as president. And so the ASUI Winter Social, it's a social for all students. So from the early part of the interview, one thing I really focused on was community, bringing back campus liveliness after COVID. And this event, served that purpose. We had here in the Idaho Student Union building, we showcased student clubs, student organizations, student media, fraternity sorority life, the Residence Hall Association, we showcased all these ways to get involved on campus, as well as just hosted a fun event with free food, live music. We had a beer garden here in the Student Union building. We had a mechanical bowl. And so the first year of this event, we had 400 or 500 students, but this past year we had over 1,000 students attend this event, which in terms of student events, outside of football games or the others, that's a pretty hard number to get. And so I was really, pleased with the turnout, and I'm excited for ASUI to continue this tradition into the future, a way for, all students to come together. It's this, when I at this event, you see Greeks, you see student athletes, you see students from the residence halls, you see students from all walks of campus, mingling together. And so that was the beauty of this event, why it's my favorite one. Yeah.
Well, there's another good one that you have mentioned prior and other times I've talked to you that I thought needs to be mentioned, especially for those Vandal alums that may or may not or find themselves or live in Southeast Idaho near a certain university with a tigerish type of mascot. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, and I got a little guy right here, actually. The Keen Spud. So the Keen Spud, this was another one of my favorite projects. This is something that I worked on with the associate students, Idaho State University, and it's an old tradition between U of I and ISU, back from the 50s or 60s, I believe. I remember the year it was lost. It was lost in 1979, and the original trophy has never been seen ever since. I'm not sure where it's at. It might be in a corner in the corner club or someplace down at ISU, who knows? But we're not going to let this one get lost. So it's something that it was the trophy between men's basketball back in the day. And so us and ISU worked together. We both pulled funds for us to fund this project. And where we got it made is actually here on the University of Idaho campus. I worked with the Integrated Research and Innovation Center here on campus, the IRIC, and they have this big 3D printer. And so this 3D printer, it's very advanced, very, very cool. And I worked with their engineers over there and set up the design. We also had help from the University of Idaho library. I want to give a big shout out to the dean of the library, Ben Hunter, for providing us with the original design of the Keen Spud. And so unfortunately, so now it's used for men's and women's basketball. And unfortunately, ISU has won it both last year and this year. So I was not able to actually, have it, be on our turf for this year. But I'm hoping that next year we can win it. And one thing I'm also gonna push down to the next president is to have a trophy for it somewhere here in our student union building to showcase it when we win that next basketball game. So, but that was a very fun, cool project that I was happy to work on with ISU.
Bravo. I just, for those online, look in the chat. I just sent out a link to the story about the reclaiming of the King Spud Trophy. So a little bit extra info for your, a little bit of light reading for your evening tonight. Well done, Tanner. That's great. So, so what, we talked about your biggest accomplishments, let's talk about your biggest challenges you faced, during your time as president. How did you lead the students and community through those times? We all know about 2022 and others. So what were those challenges or challenge that you want to talk about there?
Yeah, so November 13th definitely was the biggest challenge I've faced, and the challenge that we all face here in our community. I remember that day so well. It was I remember I was in Beta Theta Pi, my fraternity, and I was doing laundry on that morning. It was a Sunday morning, and then we got the vandal alert. And as the day went on, we heard more information, and I just we couldn't believe it. So I one thing I do want to say too, in ASUI we had several people who were close with the friends we lost. That's the thing that was so challenging about what happened is that the way I've always described the four friends we lost is that they were all social butterflies. The one I knew Xana, I wasn't familiar friends with the other three, but I knew Xana. I remember when I was campaigning actually the year before, so sophomore year in the spring before the junior year being president. I remember where I was off campus, and I was at I believe like a Pi Phi outhouse, and there's some folks just hanging out. And I remember having a full-on conversation with Xana where she came up to me and she was asking me about what is ASUI, she was asking me questions about the campaign and all this and that. And I always say that, but like everyone knew Xana, everyone knew the friends we lost, because they were such social butterflies, and so that's what made it all the more difficult. And so during that time though, me and Madison, we talked a lot, and we were approached by a lot of them. We were approached by so much people from the media. It was just ridiculous, just the amount of requests we were getting for interviews and everything else. And we talked with University Communications, throughout that process, and we did 2 or 3 interviews, believe with Fox and CNN, but we decided not to do any national interviews after that. And I decided from there on that I would only speak with the Argonaut. Of course, being our student media here, always going to speak to the Argonaut. And I do want to say the reporters over at the Argonaut did a great job in that whole story. And so, and KHQ as well, John Webb, he was a student here the year before. He was, I knew him, he was, involved in many ways on campus. And so, also, one thing that Bandle Solutions and ASUI kind of did together was those Bandle Strong bracelets. And we in ASUI passed several resolutions to the families and those involved in the tragedy. But the last thing I'll say on this, and we'll leave it at that, is the 1-year remembrance vigil was definitely the biggest challenge for myself. So I worked with Maddie Whitney, Gus Ellswell, Heather Blashka, the presidents of Alpha Phi, Pi Phi, and Sigma Chi on working on this 1-year remembrance vigil, because and with help from Dean of Students Blaine Eccles, because I've been asked a lot of times, if like, are students still mourning, and on that question, and the reality is, that the reality is, so we wanted to put together, wanted to put together something where the community can come and mourn together, and I know, I know many people, everyone mourns in their own way, and everyone mourns, in their own time, but we, thought, the 1-year anniversary, to do something, to mourn together as a community. And I just want to give, big thanks to them for all the support and us working together for that vigil. But the one thing that will always stay with me, is, speaking at the vigil. I was just kind of introducing the speakers on a stage, and that was about it. But I'll never forget just seeing all the students' faces out in the crowd, that night. And just want to end it with, I've been thankful for the Dean Eccles leadership and support. He on November 13th went and spoke to every chapter of the brothers and sisters that were lost, and he did a really great job with that, and it helped me as well in navigating those challenges. And I know that the Vandal Healing Garden is in process right now to be brought here on campus, and I think that it's going to be add to that healing and have a place for students to even when they're coming back to visit campus in the future, or students who are still here on campus, to have a place to go and to remember, to reflect. And so that was the challenge for all of us, and it was something that will always stay with me.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody here to say that we really appreciate, you, your leadership team, other ASUI, leaders during, being, who you were and facing that challenge head on. And I can only imagine that as when you started this ASUI stint, and you probably didn't get, the most intense training for something like this. I'm sure you got some, or you've been to certain, conventions or other, type of meetings where there's, some sort of training given, but no one can really prepare for something like that. Even our own president, U of I President Green. So kudos to you and your team for, with all the, national, international, obviously state and local eyes and ears that were, focused right on you and the university, the campus. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must have been like. So, glad that you were the leader at that time. And so, along that same line, you worked with President Green through challenges like that, and representing the needs of the student body. How does that work? I mean, do you meet with President Green, and his cabinet often? Do you, have a dialogue with him, on a regular basis? Like, how do you get through those challenges and represent the student body while working with the president on the things that he has on his, in his project list?
Yeah, thanks for that, Travis. I meet with President Green once a month. We have a monthly meeting, and usually bring along my vice president as well to those meetings, and we have an agenda, and so one thing I think that's really special is that he was an ASUI president back in the day, and so I'm not sure, I never got to work with Chuck Sabin or any other past presidents, but I would imagine that being in this role, and then being university president, that you would look at it a lot differently than you would if you were just an outsider. Also I think there's a big aspect of too that he's a Vandal alum, of course, and quite frankly a very proud one. His grandfather, Dr. Doc Green, if that's right, was the athletic director for the university. So I think it really helps that he's got a very special connection to this campus. And so when it comes to challenges, I think he has a respect for the student voice and student leadership. And it's like one thing I will say, and I've always been vocal about this. I've seen and I've heard a lot of stories about past ASUI presidents coming into the role who want to down off the administration, want to burn it all to the ground. I'm not going to say any names or speak on that at all, but one thing I've always been vocal on when working with President Green is that it's a lot easy. It's very easy to burn something down. It's really difficult to actually build something up. And so working with the president's office, I've worked to establish a very good connection between ASUI and the president's office and the student body, and to work together. We've worked together rather than working against each other. I believe that a lot of the initiatives he's been pursuing are in the interests of the students. And so I know that one thing also that we worked on together was on the legislative ambassador program. I know that he was integral in helping us get that done. And so and also in connecting with the state leadership to show what the student voices are saying we're going on here in Idaho. And so these last few years working with President Green, I think that we've had a great relationship, and that I really, if I can pass on any words of advice to my successor, it's that to build those bridges, to build up rather than push down. And that oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes, if it's in the interest of the university, it's in the interest of the student body. And that is something that I, being president, being here for 2 years now, looking around and having a good understanding of university politics and how these systems work, things that are good for the university are more likely than not good for the student body. And not all the time though, but I will say most of the time. And so it's been really great working with him, and I do appreciate how he values the student voice and opinion, and well, hopefully that will be continued on to the future.
So obviously, just everyone's probably got a sense of this just from the last 30 minutes of questions, but having been an undergrad and a graduate student myself, I mean, and juggling jobs here and there throughout my time, how in the heck do you manage such a full schedule when you're a double major, ASUI government, fraternity responsibilities, and everything else? You got to kiss babies and do all that. How do you manage all that? Time management is a huge piece of anyone's life. How do you do it?
Yeah, I don't know sometimes. I don't know sometimes, Travis. No, one thing I really learned from this role is definitely time management. And I live and breathe from my Outlook calendar. My buddies always give me a tough time for it. They're like, oh, we should go. You gonna go like turkey hunt next weekend or something like that. I'm like, let me check my calendar. And they always give me so much, for it. But it is tough, it is. I just have to I have to put in, schedule blocks for certain times that I know I'll be busy, or really have to be organized on that calendar. And so, but another thing too, I will say, is that I like being busy. I don't like, sitting still for very long. I you know I really crave, going out and have those experiences, meeting with people, and I wouldn't, if I wasn't in this role, I probably would just be at home playing Rocket League rather than doing this interview right now, for example. And so I really value, going out there and being active. And so, but I will say, it's been, some tough times where, I get into, I come to my office, and I do ASUI stuff all day. And then I look at the time like, well, I gotta go home and eat dinner now. And then I'm like, well, I got a couple of assignments due tomorrow, so I gotta work on it at night. And so I've had some times where my time's a little stretched and it gets a little tough, but that's just kind of how life is, I think, and that I would rather be busy than not busy at all.
So we got a question from the chat that kind of, that fits in with that last question a little bit pretty nicely. Segues. So, you've talked about time management, how you do it. So what would be your advice to someone that's an incoming freshman? That's our question from the chat. It could be anything you think of. Time management got me thinking about that, because I have a 16-year-old that would definitely benefit from that. What would be your advice to an incoming freshman that's looking at the U of I?
Yeah, first piece of advice I always give is get involved. I know that myself, first thing I did was got involved in Beta Theta Pi fraternity. That gave me brothers, friends before the first day of classes even began. Being able to go through Rush and meet people before full school even starts up was just so vital. And that throughout my college experience, I wouldn't be able to be in this position. I wouldn't be able to to succeed even in my academics without my fraternity brothers. The support system is just it's like nothing else. I'm able to talking about any issues, anything I'm going through. I've been through relationships and just been able to talk to. Think about my buddy Torn Tool right now. Like last night, we just we had a good talk, and that is so important. And so get involved, because that's how you're going to meet other people. I know that there's the last director of department student involvement, he did this presentation where it showed the statistic. I can't remember the numbers surrounding it, but it really it demonstrated how students who are involved are more likely to excel in the classroom. Students who are involved in any kind of student organization will succeed academically, whereas if you're not, you're more likely to not stick around here and not fulfill your college career. And so that's the number one rule of advice. That's the number one piece of advice. And it doesn't matter what it is too either. I encourage you to just go search engage.u Idaho. That's where we have all of our student involvement opportunities. And if Greek life's not for you, there's the Residence Hall Association, which does a lot of fun programming. And just on Sunday, I went to the RHA banquet, and they gave away a lot of awards, and they're having the time of their lives. I went to on last week OMA and Unity banquet, and got to see all the awards they gave out to the students who just absolutely have a blast in those organizations. Heck, if you're into Legos, there's a Lego club. There truly is something for everybody. I have a buddy who's in the Vandal Logger sports, who goes up every weekend and has a chainsaw, and they all do logger sports together. And so no matter what it is, there's something for you there. And don't be discouraged. Don't be come out of your shell and come and get involved.
So speaking of that, let's see, it was Saturday morning, just this past Saturday, and I was headed into our alumni board meeting, and the door was locked into the ISA, Pittman, whatever it's called now. It was just called the Sub when I was there, but there was a girl waiting outside to get in, just like me. And she asked me what I was doing there. I told her, I said, what are you doing here, early in the morning on a Saturday? And she said, I'm on the U of I esports team, and we have the Big Sky Conference esports championships, and I need to get into the computer lab or whatever on the bottom floor of the ISA. the Pittman Center. And I'm like, holy cow, I had no idea that there was an official esports team at U of I. So if that doesn't tell you, there's something for everybody. Thanks, Tanner. So this is, again, off script a little bit, but you mentioned Vandal Pride. That's one of your most important tenets, while you've been a leader and a student. Describe what that means to you. What does that term Vandal Pride mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It means it's like the Vandal family is, definitely the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, I've talked to, students from other schools, whether it be, I don't want to mention other universities in our state, like Boise State, but I've talked to students from other schools. Even, this past summer, I talked to the students who, I was living in DC. I talked to people who went to, universities, colleges across the country. But, like talking to these other students, there's quite nothing like that Vandal family, that Vandal pride, that Vandal community. And I think there's several things that play into it. I think, our campus that we have here is just, it's world class. I mean, I'm looking at my window right now, and I'm looking at admin lawn, I'm looking around, and it's just set up in such a special way for us to come together, I think. And that, we're up here in the Palouse, and especially the winter times when you really see it in those cold, dark months. And there's not much really to do on the outside. And so it really forces us to come together. And so I think that plays a big role in it. And I think it exists everywhere here on this campus. I think, I see it like at our football games. These students just get so into it and get very excited. But I also saw it before our football team was good. I respectfully, I was here when my freshman and sophomore year, and I'll be honest, I didn't myself. I wasn't the most Vandal pride. I had a lot of Vandal pride, but I didn't go to the football games that year. Sorry, but just being honest. And so, but we still saw it out in just like the tailgate where alumni would come up, parents would come up, their trailers, their campers, and everyone would just hover around and get a hot dog or whatever else, and just come together. And you see it. I just see it everywhere on the campus, and it's community, and it's family, and that's what it is to me.
That's a great response. So as you reflect back, on these last 4+ years that you've been around, you've met a lot of people. Who would you say, were your mentors or have been your mentors during your time at the university?
Yeah. So so many. First one I do want to say is Sean O'Neill. Sean O'Neill, he was our ASUI advisor last year, and he was the director of Department of Student Involvement. He's now working for the American Cancer Society, doing really great things there, doing a lot of great work for cancer research. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, truly. Last year, with everything that we went through, he helped me navigate so many challenges and so many different obstacles, and gosh, just the advice I would get from him. He was so welcoming, and be able to go into his office, sit down, and just vent. Because that was another thing too about in this role, you get frustrated, sometimes when you don't get your way, or when you got an issue with something. And so being able to go in and vent to him was just so special, and that you'd be able to talk to him. It was so easy to talk to his way, be able to talk to him about anything. Honestly, we talked, like, we disagreed on politics, but we talked politics all the time, and we never got contentious about it. And so he's given me so much advice, and just been just the best mentor I could ask for. And that, to that extent, I also want to thank the Department of Student Involvement as a whole. They've been just so supportive. Brittany Kristen, Brandon Brackett, Sandra O'Kelly, they all have always been very supportive and always offered advice. And beyond that, I've had a lot of great professors and faculty that have been mentors of mine. Even though probably doesn't know it, but my professor Tom Drake, just listening to his lectures, I've taken away so many life lessons from those lectures. But another thing I want to speak on is some of the past alumni and ASUI presidents that I've had the chance to speak with. A couple of names that come to mind is Nate Fisher, Mackenzie McDonald, Samantha Perez, John Gaffney, Mahmood. All of those names really come to mind. And yeah, there's so many more I'm forgetting as well, but you know, I was able
about Dirk Kempthorne.
And now I was about to mention that one because I have a little snippet about him. I was going to mention it last because Dirk Kempthorne in particular, I was able to meet him when he came up for the USS Idaho Commission, and I have a snippet on my other screen right here. But he is someone I look up to in so many ways. Speaking with him, he's just very authentic, very real, and he's been through. You know, he was ASUI president. He was the governor of Idaho, United States Senator, and Secretary of the Interior. And speaking to him, though, he's not like that, just politician type. He's an actual real person to talk to, and who's genuine, who's authentic, and you can tell he has a good heart and that he cares. I had lunch with him and the crew of the USS Idaho submarine, and he really cares about those guys on that were on the going to be on the USS Idaho submarine. And so another great conversations I've had with Dirk Kempthorne is on the ASUI monuments, because he was his initiative when he was ASUI president to have the the student fees increased for put the dome over the Kibbe Dome. That would be named the ASUI Kibbe Dome. And now this, it's changed to the P1FCU Kibbe Dome, and something that I've worked on President Green as the ASUI Recognition Monument. And I've had so many conversations with Governor Kempthorne over the phone and in person about this and about the monument. And the one big piece of advice that he said that always stuck out to me is that this is the students' monument, and that to be strong and confident, and that ultimately it is our decision on the monument, because it is the students who funded this Kibbe Dome. And so I could go on and on about Governor Kempthorne. He's been just such an amazing role model, and someone I look up to greatly.
Excellent. Well, so as we've looked back quite a bit, I guess, tonight. Let's talk about looking forward. Since you're only 2 weeks away from graduation, so what is next for you, Tanner?
Yeah, so I will be this summer. I'll be studying for the LSAT. First off, I'll be applying for law schools this fall. But for this summer, I was recently accepted for an internship in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's kind of an interesting one. It's the RNC convention, but I'm really excited. There's different kind of responsibilities as far as I see, but I know that one of the internships within it is kind of deals with campaign and election law, so I think that'd be very interesting to work with. And Milwaukee looks very cool, very beautiful, and so I'm very excited for that. Beyond that, though, I'll be taking the LSAT in August and applying for law schools in the fall. And then another thing that's going to come up here pretty soon, I've been kind of working through the paperwork, and hopefully the week or two after I graduate, we'll be going up to Spokane for the medical exam process for the Marine Corps. And I'm really hopeful on this. That's something I've been wanting to do since I was in high school, but I've been wanting to be the ultimate goal is to be a JAG officer in the Marine Corps, Judge Advocate General. So yeah, I got a long road ahead with this internship, and then law school applications, and officer candidate school, then law school, and then everything else. And so I'm excited to get post-grad life started. I'm excited for law school, even though I've heard it's kind of tough in the first year. I will say that the University of Idaho has prepared me for this moment, for graduation, and has given me the confidence to succeed.
Well, we know you like to keep busy 24/7, have that Outlook calendar packed, nice and packed in there. So sounds like even after graduation, it's still going to be packed. I hope you do take some time for the summer, like to be a kid in the summer as much as you can. So we're kind of through. We only got 4 minutes left. Sandy, is there any questions from our participants before we close out here?
I do not have any. You addressed the ones that we got. We kind of wove them in there. So we kind of want to know, as the Alumni Association, how will you stay connected with your alma mater after you graduate?
Yeah, of course. So I think I'll always be connected with U of I. University of Idaho, it will be one of the schools I'm applying to, and I'm I got comes up to the LSAT score and all of that. We'll see how that process goes. But there's chance I might be reconnecting there. But once, these next couple of years, after graduating and law school and all that, I'm planning on focusing on my career and everything, but ultimately, in the future, I really want to be involved and really want to go back and reconnect with the University of Idaho and get involved, whether it be in the Alumni Association or any other way I can help. Also, it's always kind of like one of my, and this is, kind of funny, but I think about this every year, around football season. And some of the alumni I think this is kind of funny on this call, but one of my dreams in life, one of my goals in life is to have a camper and to come up for the Vandal football games during, football season and get one of those, reserve a spot in the Kibbe Dome parking lot and to, just grill some hot dogs and, just, say hi to the students and whatnot. I get involved that way would be really cool, as well as get involved in the Alumni Association. But without a doubt, the University of Idaho has given me so much. And so, any way I can give back in the future and help other students come here and help them succeed in their path is definitely a priority of mine.
Well, you've talked about what you've given to U of I, but we're appreciative of what you've given to us as alums through your leadership, through some of the, most challenging times at the university and some obviously very positive times in, enrollment growth and obviously just, campus pride, campus spirit, the good word of the U of I, spreading that around and being really the true epitome of a Vandal. You've been brave, you've been bold. As we know, some of the taglines are out there. You epitomize that, and we appreciate, especially those of us that are alums on the call, that you've done that. And there's some nice comments in the chat that you should check out from folks on the call. And we also want to recognize Mr. and Mrs. McClain on the call, Tanner's parents, who without them and without their support, you may never have come to the U of I. And so whenever that move happened from Kansas to Idaho, we appreciate that. Otherwise, you might have been a K-State kid. So we're grateful for what you've done in your service. We know we're not going to see the last of you. We're going to see even more of you, hopefully, no matter where your life takes you. So thanks again for your time. Any last words before we close out?
Last words? We got two last words. Go Vandals.